Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another analysis and discussion video. Similar to the essays, but more laid back, you know? We're just relaxed. We're just discussing games. That usual thing. And today I was wondering about my second favourite franchise of all time, Yakuza. I am currently about halfway through Yakuza 5. And then once I finish that game, I'm going to go on to Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. And then once I've finished that, I have finished all of the Yakuza games. I've played 1, 2, 3, 4. I've played 7, you know, Like a Dragon, which is probably my favourite. I've also played 0. I have not played the PS2 originals because I do not own a PS2. But I've done my fair share of research. I've watched YouTubers like GC Positive. I highly recommend you check out his content about Yakuza because it's a great franchise. I'm so glad I started getting into it in January of this year. But the interesting thing is where the series is going to go next. Obviously, with the beat-em-up style, that belonged to Kiryu's games, and he had his final entry with 6 about 4 or 5 years ago. And the creators have said that Yakuza is not going to return to that. It's going to stay as a turn-based role-playing game inspired by Dragon Quest, which I personally love. I think that's incredible. For a game series to go from action to turn-based is almost unheard of. It's usually the other way around. You look at Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. That's another reason why this is my second discussion video. It links into the previous video about the evolution of JRPGs and that lot. So the beat-em-up style combat for future games is gone. That's moved on to Judgment and Lost Judgment, which is coming out at the end of this year, made by Ryuga Gotoku Studio, who's owned by Sega, the company behind Yakuza and Judgment. And I'm probably going to play Judgment after I've finished 6, and then maybe Lost Judgment. It's essentially Yakuza, but you're a detective, and you beat people up, and you chase them, and you track them down, and that's really interesting. But the future of the Yakuza games, that's what I want to discuss. I want to talk about Yakuza 8. You know, it's probably not going to be called Yakuza 8, that's just the current title, and it's likely coming in the next couple of years, because the company are often sticking with at least one game release per year. This year's Lost Judgment in September. With Yakuza 8, or essentially Yakuza Like a Dragon 2, if you will. It's essentially synonymous, it's the same thing. I am curious as to where Yakuza will go from here, because it's going to be a turn-based game, and it's going to have Ichiban, and Nanba, and Sayako, and Adachi. I'm not sure if it will have Jungi-han or Zhao or Eri, especially not Eri because she was an optional party member, and Zhao and Jungi were both much more minor party members. It's hard to say that they'll return. I feel like we'll have 3 or even 4 new party members, and then we'll keep the original 3 of Sayako, Nanba, and Adachi, because they were in most of the cutscenes for a majority of the game. A majority of the chapters was just those 4, with Ichi, obviously. So Ichi, Nanba, Sayako, and Adachi will probably return. So, that's a question. Would they kill off Zhao or Jungi or Eri? That's a good question. I could see them doing that, knowing my experience with Yakuza. But I could also see them not doing that. But they want to reinvent the wheel. So there's going to be new party members, there's going to be new jobs. What new jobs could you make? That's a question. Because they've got many comedic jobs, similar to games like South Park: The Stick of Truth, where the job system is just like most turn-based combat, except it's funny because it's based on real life. You can play as a chef and smack pepper in people's faces. Nanba's neutral job is a homeless person, and he essentially summons pigeons, so he's like a mage, he's like a black mage. So they could add new jobs. What jobs could they add? That's the interesting thing to think about. And I've got a few ideas myself. One that they could add in Yakuza 8 could be some kind of Beastmaster or Pet Owner job class, because in most JRPGs, like take Bravely Default 2 or take Dragon Quest 7, there's a Monster Hunter style job where you usually wield either a bow or a knife, and in this case it would probably be a knife, because I doubt in Yakuza you see many people with bows and arrows. You don't. So they'd hold a knife, and most of their attacks would be based on their animals and creatures, or in this case pets. So you could have Ichi in like a vet outfit with a dog as his weapon, and he just sends the dog out to attack them. Or he just like fishes up a tuna and smacks them in the face with it, which would be a good reference to Yakuza 3, you know, with Kiryu and his fishing skills. That's another thing. Bring back fishing for Yakuza 8. Please. There's not enough minigames. There's clearly not enough content, even though the game is hundreds of hours long. So, that's one thing. Another job. What's another job they could add? I'm just thinking through job classes. I know they could add a bard-like character. Well, I guess they already have that with the idol. But one thing that I really want them to do is give you... One issue I had with Like a Dragon, and I only had very few, but one of the issues I did have was that you couldn't have a female party member and have her job as not the healer. If you tried to do that, you'd fail, because Nanba, as the only other male healer, his output is terrible. He could only use a skill that would heal one person, and sometimes it wasn't always to max health. So you'd need a female party member as a healer, and none of the male party members could be healers, which meant none of the females could be attackers. So there wasn't much variety. So I want them to get rid of that, personally. I doubt it because of, well, Japan's culture and everything. But just let me play the game with Nanba as the healer, and let me play the game with Sayeko as a hostess or something else. Give them proper attack jobs instead of forcing us down a set path, because that's part of turn-based combat, is you're supposed to be able to make your own party with your own choices. So what else could happen with Yakuza 8? Well, it's going to follow Ichiban, because it was left on a cliffhanger. I'm not going to spoil the end of the game, but I felt some emotions, and it was very, very hard to watch. The English voice acting was incredible for that. Please keep the English voice acting. That needs to return, because sure, the series has been only Japanese voices for almost all of the games besides Like a Dragon and the original Yakuza. But that doesn't mean that the English voice acting of Like a Dragon was bad. It was great. You know, I got to see my boy Robbie Daymond again. I got to see Akechi Man. I got to see Iwai from P5 as Ichiban. I got to see many I got Matt Mercer as Majima. That made me happy. So keep the English voice acting. Hopefully it improves in future games. But where's Yakuza gonna go from here? Are we just going to never see the characters from 1 to 6 again? Is it just going to be the characters from Like a Dragon and new characters? Is it going to be a story that crosses over them with Judgment? Is it going to be a story that's a spin-off? We don't know. Because Yakuza is in an interesting place right now. It's starting to gain popularity again because of this whole Like a Dragon situation being so different. It's attracting Dragon Quest fans. That's how I got here. That's how I found the game. So what are we going to do? We can think about the story all we want, but I think there's a few definites that we know can and will return. Turn-based combat, guaranteed. The developers said it, that's their plans for the next Yakuza game. Karaoke minigame, obviously, it's been a staple since 3. Some sort of crime story, obviously. Maybe we could have multiple playable characters. And I don't mean in the sense of, oh yeah, you can play as technically in Like a Dragon, you can play as multiple characters because you've got party members. No, I mean bring back the character switching system from 4 and 5, where in 4 and 5 you will have multiple characters, each with their own arc. So, say for Yakuza 8, you could start playing as Ichiban for the first half of the game. But then the second half it cuts off and there's this new character completely. And then he has his own arc, and then he ends up joining Ichi for a big grand finale, and he becomes a new party member for the rest of the game. That would be really interesting. Another thing, we need a turn-based... This is just a pipe dream at this point, but I really would love to see Kiryu or Majima or Saejima or Akiyama or any of these pre-existing protagonists that we've played as just at least a temporary party member, just to see how overpowered they'd be, because I imagine they would be, especially Kiryu, the Dragon of Dojima. That's what they need. They need a bit of oomph, and then they need to show Ichi's growth. They could bring back old characters, you know? Maybe one character secretly survived, and then he could finish off that character. Well, Ichi wouldn't kill him, because we know Ichi, he's not going to kill. Because, you know, Yakuza games, you never kill people in them. Never at all. So that's interesting to think about. What else? Well, what's going to return? Are we going to see Haruka again? Could we have a Yakuza game entirely in prison? You know? Could we have a Yakuza game solely playing as Majima? And I mean solely, only him. Not like Zero, where you have him and Kiryu, I mean just him. What new minigames, though, for Yakuza 8? How's it going to tie in? Is Ichiban's story going to be just as long as Kiryu's? Is he going to have his own 6 or 7 games, or is he going to have, you know, 2? What new minigames? We could bring back Dragon Kart. We could have some Dragon Quest inspired minigames, because obviously Ichi, favourite series just like mine, Dragon Quest. So I feel like if you incorporated those series together in its own sort of world, you could have minigames like some sort of gambling minigame with You could, tell you what, you could have a mini game where you just play the first Dragon Quest. Obviously that wouldn't be easy, you'd have to get the rights and everything from Square Enix and Hori, but I'm sure they'd allow it. That would be a great mechanic and minigame for old-time fans and newcomers of JRPG history. So there's a lot of potential, because where's Yakuza gonna go from here? How many of these mainline games are gonna be turn-based? What's not going to be turn-based? Are we going to get another spin-off? I just don't know. All I know is I'm incredibly excited for it. As long as they don't rush it, because that's my worry with yearly releases, is they could rush things. Maybe we have a new setting besides Yokohama, you know? Maybe Yakuza 8 isn't actually a sequel. Maybe it's a prequel where we play as Ichi in prison. I don't count that as spoilers because you learn that in the prologue, so yeah, sorry if that spoiled for you, but where is it going to go from here? And I really hope that the series grows and people just learn to accept that the main series has changed genres from a action beat-em-up style game to a turn-based role-playing game. I know for a fact there's a fair portion of you watching, if you did play Yakuza, you don't anymore, because playing Like a Dragon you just hate turn-based games, and I think that's fine, I understand that. But there's also a part of me thinking about the story of Like a Dragon compared to the others so far, and that's one of the reasons why it's my favourite. It's got an incredible story. It's still Yakuza. It's still a crime drama. It's a beautiful story. Obviously it's a little bit exaggerated for entertainment purposes, but I highly recommend giving it a try at least. It's a bit of a slow start, but not as slow as Yakuza 3. Like a Dragon is unanimously up there in, at the very least, the top 5 Yakuza games. I'd say top 3. So where's it going to go? What's the story going to involve? Is it going to be a grand story? Are we going to get returning characters? Is the next Yakuza game even going to be about Ichi? I think it will be, but there's an equal chance we could get other games. We could get Kiwami 3, we could get other remakes. The game for next year could be like a port of a Yakuza game to Switch even, who knows? But the engine is beautiful, and the city is beautiful, so I imagine they want to expand the city of Yokohama, which is why I think 8, or Like a Dragon Part 2, is going to be the next game in the series. But it's just really interesting to think about, and I'm really excited for it. So that's my general thoughts about the future of Yakuza. I think it's going to be a very interesting next year and a half. Because what other series went from beat 'em up style to turn-based? Honestly, ask yourself that and think about it. And then come back to Yakuza. I highly, highly recommend playing Like a Dragon. Perfect place for newcomers. Either play that, or play 0, or play Kiwami 1. Or even Kiwami 2. They're all great places to start the series. But just try and stick with the series, because yeah, it's got turn-based combat, but it was their first attempt at turn-based combat, and I think they did it almost top-notch. It was very good. There were a few hiccups here and there, a few difficulty spikes that were a bit higher than I expected, but it is a good series for newcomers. and I'm looking forward to whatever they have cooking over there at Sega next. Just please continue Ichi's story at some point, because I love that character. I love him. I love him more than Kiryu, and that's saying something, because I've played, what, 5 or 6 games as Kiryu, and only 1 as Ichi. I love it. I love Yakuza. This is just me gushing about the franchise for 20 minutes. But that's all I've got to say. Leave suggestions in the comments for any style of videos you want. If you want more of these, leave a like and subscribe if you want to. I don't mind. It's under your control. You don't have to sub if you don't want to. You can hate my guts for all I care. Just, if you are a Yakuza fan, please enlighten me in the comments with your thoughts about the future of the franchise and what you'd like to see, because I'd love to read them and have a nice discussion about it. So yeah, that's all I have to say really. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in a bit. I promise the proper essays, scripted videos are still coming. They're not cancelled, they just take longer and more time and effort and planning than something like this. So, thanks for watching, ladies and gents. I'll see you all soon, hopefully, with more videos. Yeah, have a good one. Take care.